Hello, world. This is the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, K-Mo. Thank you for taking this journey with us with real men, real problems, real solutions. Let's go. All right, good people. We are back at the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, K-Mo, and we are here with two gentlemen who we had a conversation a couple of episodes about some good topics. But today we're going to talk about Money 101. And so I have Jay here. Jay, tell everybody hello.
Hello, everybody.
We have KC here.
What's going on?
And so we're going to go right into it today. And so how do we learn about money? So I'll go first. So as a young child, I learned my mom was a school teacher. My grandmother was a school teacher as well. And I learned about money through having a piggy bank. I know it sounds like really minute or real, how can I say, just elementary, but it was. My grandma was an elementary school teacher, and she would keep her change back, in that time into a kitchen table, and then she would leave it for me. And so when I came, I would put that same money right back into the piggy bank. And then once it got full in her house, then I would take it to my house. And then I think it was subconsciously allowing me to learn how to save money, put money away, and then continue that as I became an adult. So I didn't come from money. Blue collar workers in my family. I also have some folks who definitely went to college and went on to do some great things and have good productive lives. But from a grandparent and mother standpoint, that's how I learned about saving money at an earlier age. What about you guys?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. This is Jerry. So the way I learned about money definitely was, looking at my parents and, how they made money and also how they spent money. But as far as learning about savings, I didn't learn that until I was on my own because I first started working actually when I was 9 years old. So I knew fairly quickly how to make money. I knew the value of a dollar. But as far as, saving and investing, I didn't learn that until I was in my 20s. So a lot of stuff was definitely trial and error. I spent a lot of money early on when I was younger. Didn't really do a whole lot of saving. And that didn't really change until I would say I was in my 30s. So definitely, with me, it was a lot of trial and error. That's what I learned about saving. That's how I learned about investing personally. I mean, it was a lot of that.
Okay. What about you, Casey?
Yeah, for me, the lack of money was always a source of conflict. And so, I grew up, had a paper route and had odd jobs here and there because I always wanted to go to the candy house and be able to buy candy and things like that. But when I got in middle school and high school, I was saving money like crazy just because I didn't want to be without money. I didn't want to not be able to get something that I wanted. And so I think that's what led to me being a person that saves a lot. Later in my adult life, I became more familiar with how do you invest in certain things, whether it's the stock market, whether it's real estate. And that's just been really a trial by doing. I mean, no one really kind of pulled me aside and said, hey, this is what you do.
Okay. And so as we got into into our adulthood, there's some definitely trials and tribulations that we all kind of spoke about. And one of those being, I think that sense of saving for me, these are key words that I want people to kind of think about, especially our men, saving a little. So I was always taught that if you had $5, save $2. If you had $10, save 3 or 4, and do whatever you would like to do with the rest, because you definitely don't just want to work to pay and just not have any fun in life, because who wants to do that? But also, there's a lot of sacrifice that it comes to when you're talking about living in society and things of that nature. But I definitely would say some of the things that I got, I saw some of my friends, especially when we got 18, was there were a lot of people on campus that had credit cards.
Yeah,
there were those folks who had credit cards and they were waiting for you because they may have they didn't know that you knew how to save, or if you did, or you had parents, or you had somebody to tell you what to do. But we are lucky today because we have our resident professional here to kind of give us some tips on maybe some things that he didn't do, or that he's doing now to kind of help other people to kind of save their money and really do some investing. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, and that's a great tie-in. So this is Jay again. That's a great tie-in with credit cards and just having debt in general, because we were talking about saving, but one of the first things I tell people when they come into my office and they present their financial situation to me, if they have a lot of debt, I'll be perfectly candid. It doesn't make sense if you have a lot of debt for you to start putting savings in a savings account, even a money market fund, because you might get at maximum 2.5% in a money market fund on your savings. But if you have credit card debt, I'm guaranteeing that interest rate is probably about 17 to 21%. So it's very important to pay off your debt first. And then once you pay down that debt, then you can start saving. But I would never give anyone advice if they had a lot of debt to just be saving and not putting towards getting rid of that debt. But that would be one of the first things. And so, if you don't have debt, then okay, then we can have a conversation about saving. So I always recommend that people have in an emergency fund 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And those 3 to 6 months living expenses, that's really important, because in the climate that we live in, there's a lot of uncertainty with jobs. People's situation can change in an instant. So to relieve some of that stress and some of that pressure, to have 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund in savings definitely helps out a whole lot.
How does that work? How does that work, Jay, when you're talking to a young person just graduating and working, trying to pay bills, trying to have a good time? Because we encourage to get that out your system and have a good time when you're young. How do you encourage that 6 months? Because I can't sit up here and say that I had 6 months of earnings at 25. Like, how would you then tell yourself at 25, looking at yourself now, what would you say?
Well, the best thing to do is to get into the habit of saving. So, one thing you can do is you can do something where the money is automatically taken out of your paycheck where you don't miss it. And even if it's $25 per pay period, then if you're paid twice a month, that's $50 a month.
Right.
$50 a month. 50 times 12, that's going to be $600. So basically, you're not missing that money. So it's all about getting into the habit. Yes, they might not have a whole lot of money where they can save up 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but they can start to build that foundation, and they can start to get in those habits. Because honestly, if you don't have the right habits, I don't care how much money you make, you're still going to fall into the same pitfalls as you would with people that don't make as much money.
Now, let me ask you this question: Are you talking about young people? And you talk about investing and savings and stuff like that. I just heard you say where not to save a lot of your money, which was my issue. I was saving in savings accounts because that's what I was told to do. But in other situations, they have. You're talking about saving and investing. So when you're investing, are you talking about retirement? Are you talking about IRAs? Because that's what I learned more about in my later 20s and early 30s, the IRA. But what are you saying to save for at this point when you're just getting out, you're not making much money? because people match, all that type of stuff. So what suggestion would you give?
Yeah, so if you're talking about people that are just starting out, with depending on the type of job they have, I mean, most corporations will have retirement benefits of like a 401k.
Right.
So definitely put into that 401k. Because a lot of times your company will match. The percentage changes depending on what your company wants to offer, but at least you're starting to plan for your future that way. And it's a company benefit you should take full advantage of. So
okay.
That's the first thing. Now, if you have some extra money, then, there's some opportunities where you can do some things. So, one of the things I was saying as far as, having money automatically taken out of your check, per pay period, $25, $50, whatever that is, what that's called is dollar cost averaging. And so a dollar cost averaging, if you're talking about investing, you can actually be able to build up enough money to start to invest in the market. I wouldn't necessarily recommend investing in stocks if you don't have $25,000. But if you have less than $25,000, which is what we're talking about now, you can invest in mutual funds.
Okay.
Mutual funds are a great way to kind of get your feet wet. With mutual funds, basically what they're made up of, some of the highest performing stocks out there. And it could be either mutual funds that are made of stocks, or it could be mutual funds that are made of bonds.
Okay.
So that's equity or that's fixed income. That's definitely something, that people can do as well to kind of get their feet wet. If you're trying to pick individual stocks, if you don't really have the knowledge or the experience, you can fall into pitfalls like that.
Now, I want to ask you this question because I think it's very important. You go kind of deep into some things that I don't even think I knew what you were talking about at 22, 23. But if we have all listeners, right, and especially want to hit those men who, and ladies, so don't forget that, who at 22, 23, unless you have an adult or somebody around you to really kind of coach you into some of the things that you're speaking about, sometimes it may not even be that easy to save. What would you say, because I think that we talked offline about a couple of things, right? Because if I'm in a situation where I'm making some money now, I'm not making minimum wage, but I'm making some money where I'm able to, I feel like I have some money, then I'm going to have to learn how to do so. So what I've always thought about doing is, we talked about budgeting, right? I think before you invest and save in anything, you got to budget.
Yeah.
Because if all those things sound great to save, but if I'm paying my rent and then I'm eating and these other things, I may not even see where I can save a dime.
Yeah,
so
you need to know where you're spending your money.
Yeah, KC, can you talk a little bit about budgeting?
I mean, for me, budgeting is essential because, as Jay mentioned, you need to get into a habit, especially if you want to save and things like that. Budgeting allows you to see where you are spending your money. Sometimes using a credit card, using cash, you don't keep track of all these expenses, and you don't realize you're spending $100, eating lunch
out
at work.
Yeah.
And you're spending another $200 eating out happy hours.
It adds up.
And it adds up. And so by keeping track of it and keeping a budget, you not only see where your money is going, but also you can put some money aside for yourself, because you should pay yourself, whether that's in the form of savings or whether that's in the form of, hey, I want to have $50 so I can go out on the weekends. Mm-hmm. But make sure that it's in relationship to what your other expenses are, be it rent, be it other necessities.
So I'm going to add something to that. Jay, I know you got to leave in a few, but what KC just spoke about, there are three things I wrote down when you were talking. First thing was paying yourself. The second thing was your wants. And the third thing was your needs. So what I think about paying yourself is actually saving, right? So I would actually look at my budget, see how much money I have coming in. Then I will look at the things that I need. You need somewhere to stay. You need somewhere to that's affordable, right? That doesn't mean that, hey, because it costs, I have $2,000 that I have to stay somewhere that's saying $2,000. I think, Jay, I've always heard you say people are living above their needs, right? So they're living way past their needs and what they're bringing in. So if some place is 2,000 and you know you only have 3,000, you should probably stay in a place that costs 1,000.
Right.
You know, your household should be, I would say, 75% of one check. So if you have 2 checks coming in per month, only 1 check should be 75% of that, especially if you're just getting out of school. So if you have to have a roommate, 2 or 3 roommates, until you can get yourself, like you said, your feet wet and understand this thing called life and budgeting, I would do so. And sometimes that's called being smart and sacrifice, right? I know some people don't want to have roommates, but you got to have roommates sometimes when you're early so that you can reap those benefits later on down the line. So those paying, you're writing down all your needs. And then from there, your second thing I would do is pay yourself, right? Put some money aside. And I think if you do that, you will have money left over for the things that you want to do. And that's the third thing. Right. But you have to be smart about it. I always say have a financial advisor. I always say find somebody who's doing it already, knows how to do it, who's been living for a while, that you feel comfortable with, that they can help and support you through that process. Jay, you got something to say?
Yeah. And I did want to add this too, and especially with younger people. I think younger people really have to understand that you're running your own race. You're running your own race, and you have to be comfortable with that. So, what you were saying earlier as far as, people not wanting a roommate, no. If you are running your own race and there's a reason why you're doing it, be confident and be comfortable with that fact.
Cosign.
Because it's really not about comparing yourself to anyone else. We all run our own race. I think young people really have to understand that.
Yeah. Anything you want to tell before you have to leave us about, maybe you have those people who just started out, but those seasoned people, maybe somebody who's been working, in their job for about five or 6 years, and they kind of got a hold of some things, and then now they have hold to, I can stay by myself. What would be that next step of saving that you would recommend them?
Right. So these are people that have been working for a while, and do they already have good habits as far as good saving?
I would say they've maintained their habits, and they're learning a little, but still have some room to grow.
Okay. All right. So with those folks, then definitely. Now I would definitely recommend if they haven't done it yet, have that 3 to 6 months emergency fund.
Right. Now we're getting there. Yep.
Right, because once you do that, then that opens up a lot of opportunities for you to do other things.
And just to be clear, you're saying 3 to 6 months. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Jay. You're just to be clear, when you talk about 3 to 6 months, you're saying outside of investments, outside of paying yourself in an investments for retirement or whatever the case may be, having a savings account of 3 to 6 months. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Okay. Right, where it's liquid and you can put your hands on it at any time. Okay. That's exactly what I mean.
All right. So that would be the next step. And what about our seasoned folks out there who been working for 10 plus years, 15 plus years, and just looking at that next stage of their lives of trying to bring in an extra income or looking at retirement and things of that nature. I know you work with folks like that as well, who have that 3 to 6 months. They've gotten that kind of set in stone. What about those people?
Yeah, so with those people, and I could get into some very, I wouldn't say complicated stuff, but I could get very detailed. But the gist of it is, for those people, they need to make sure that any money they have is working for them. Their money has to work for them. And so that's when you start getting into different types of savings tools. So money market funds are great ways to not only protect the principal of your money, but also you have the opportunity to gain interest, and it's highly liquid. That's one form. Also, depending on someone's income, Because see, now we have more income. There are certain things that you can do as far as for investment. So when I say investments, I'm talking about you have a portfolio of mutual funds. And so those mutual funds, you have the opportunity to really start getting into the market, getting more comfortable with it, and it's a great way to invest.
Right.
A great way to invest.
And last but not least, because I know you have to go and we're pushing it, right? But our folks who may be seasoned or worked for over 10 plus years, but had a hard time and a rough time, what would you say to those folks? They may not have just got out of school. They might have been out of school for a while, or they didn't go to school, and that's fine. But they're working. They're hard workers, and they make decent money, but they have families. And some of the stuff that we're talking about right now doesn't sound realistic.
Yeah. I mean, and it definitely does make it tougher. When you do have a family, you don't have a lot of extra income or discretionary income, but you can still do something. You can still do what you can. You might not be able to save a lot, but you can save something. And it's all about just starting to chip away.
Right.
But if you have debt, pay down that debt first. Whatever your smallest debt is, knock that one out first.
Yeah.
But not only does that help you psychologically, but you also have knocked out that debt, and then you can go to another one.
Thank you, Jay. We appreciate that, and extending your time to give the knowledge of your craft, of your job, and what you do every day to help other people like yourself, and get them out of that debt. Because we really need to make sure that we live a healthier life, and that's a part of it. Financial safety, financial healing, financial freedom. So we appreciate you.
You are very welcome.
All right.
All right. Take care, Jay.
Good night. All right.
We want to thank Jay for coming on to the Brother to Brother show. We're going to end this with just kind of doing a recap. But first talk about, we really talked about finances tonight, money one-on-one, and really think about I think the biggest thing too is we talked about saving in different stages of your financial career and life. We talked about looking at paying yourself, your wants and your needs. But we also talked about budgeting. Those are the three big things. But the last thing I want us to kind of really shape and talk about, Casey, is this the planning process, right? Maybe you talk about some of the things that you've had to do from when you started off to now, and what that plan looked like for you in having a real good goal of planning.
Yeah. And Jay Jay definitely mentioned it during his comments. The biggest thing for me was paying down debt. And, I came out of college with loans, and I had some credit card debt. And you think, okay, there's no way I'm going to get out of all of this debt.
Right.
And so I just had to have the discipline to every month make sure I paid down something, more than the monthly payment on credit cards and school loans where I can make an extra payment. I would do that. And it was a hard couple of years, but it got me out of debt. And I will say, having no debt is a sense of freedom that everyone should enjoy. It allows you and it opens up other avenues for you to then save and make more money.
Right.
And so not being saddled with debt was, for me, a big part of that financial health.
I want to take a quick twist. And it was something I was thinking about at the beginning of our conversation, because we are all a product of our environments, and we are also a product of not the best situations.
Right.
Jay has a situation. You and I are probably more similar.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing, because I've heard your story, seeing the fact that you had some hard times. So
Right.
you're like, I don't want that to happen. I would say I had the same issue. But when you saw that, right? And, you have kids.
Yeah.
You have Christmas comes up, birthdays. I know my mom for sure, borrowed money so that I can never feel those hardships.
Right.
And I could never understand that, but I never felt those hardships until I got older to kind of like to share that with me, or I saw it and I knew what was going on, but I never felt that. And so it's kind of like a rough spot with me in ending this and not being able to like really touch the hearts of those folks who, yeah, this sounds great, but what about when I can't get myself out, but I still want to make sure my family doesn't feel that abandonment because of financial situations.
It's not a simple process, and I don't want to make it seem like all you have to do is set your mind to it, and then you can pay off your debt. When I was paying off my debt, I would go through points or periods where I would pay some down, and then I'd spend on something that I really wanted or for someone that I thought was important. And so you kind of manage it in that way. So if you get to a point where you're paying down debt and then you say, you know what, I really want to give someone a special Christmas present or birthday present, then do that. Do it within certain limits, or whatever you spend, you're going to have to figure out a way to, recoup that or pay it off down the road. So, each and every person is going to have their own road to how they get out of debt. But I think getting out of debt is really important, and you can still enjoy and do little things for yourself or for others. But once you get out of debt, you'll see a whole new world of possibilities opening up.
And basically, going back to what we said when we started the second segment of this, is really just having a plan.
Yeah.
Like if you have a plan, and like I said before, having some people around you who have found that financial freedom.
Exactly. Talking to people who know what they're doing.
Yes.
Emulating people who are where you want to be.
Right.
So that they can, help steer you clear of some potholes and challenges. Important.
But it's definitely important to do so and not spend more than what you have.
Yes.
And I think a lot of young people have done that. A lot of older people have done that. And some people never get out of that. And there's just bad habits that continue to happen. But we just want to make sure that we give this important fruitful conversation around finances, because we understand that it's needed.
Yeah.
If I didn't have anybody in my life to teach me, I wouldn't know either. And so I want to thank my grandmother, rest in peace, my mother, rest in peace, for those hardships and those small lessons, because I continue to do it with people that are around me. So Casey, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story.
No problem.
We want to thank Jay again for coming on to the show and giving us a wealth of knowledge from a professional standpoint. And we want to thank our listeners for doing the same thing. Again, please subscribe to tomorrowsmen.com. Subscribe, go on, listen to our podcast. We're going to continue to let it grow. This is the Brother Show. Please know we love you. Work with us, be with us, and know we're coming from the heart. This is the Brother Show.